The chandelier lights glowed like 1,000 little suns on the ceiling of the Carter Foundation Gala when William Carter took the microphone, breathed once, and said the words no one expected. "I am divorcing my wife," he said, his voice calm but unshakable. "And I am in love with Grace." Gasps rushed across the hall like a windstorm. Forks clinked against plates. Cameras flashed. The press at the back sprang to their feet. On the edge of the stage, a young woman in a simple blue dress pressed her hands to her chest. That was Grace, the maid everyone thought was invisible. Her dress was borrowed. Her shoes had been polished so many times the shine looked like glass. She stood there trembling, eyes shining and unsure, while the richest man in the city declared her name like a prayer. From a front table, Vanessa, William's wife, rose so slowly the world seemed to hold its breath. Her emerald gown swept the floor like a wave. Her diamond necklace gleamed like frost. When she spoke, it was a whisper that somehow filled the room. "You will regret this." Security shifted. Reporters crowded closer. William reached for Grace's hand. His palm was steady, hers was a bird beating inside a cage. "I choose kindness," he said, eyes on Grace. "I choose truth." He laced their fingers and lifted them into the light. A door at the back burst open. A security man rushed down the aisle and leaned to William's ear. "Sir," he said, voice tight, "they're here." "Who?" William asked, not letting go of Grace's hand. But the answer arrived before the guard could speak. Flashing red and blue lights washed across the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everyone's faces with fear. The hall doors swung wide and uniformed officers stepped in. Vanessa smiled, slow and cold, as the lead officer lifted a folder. "Mr. Carter," the officer called, "we have questions about your maid." The music died. The room froze on the edge of a moment that could break everything. This was not how anyone thought the night would go. To understand how they reached this cliff we must walk backwards, back to a simpler scene, one the world did not see. Morning light once found Grace sweeping the back veranda of the Carter mansion. She moved quietly as if noise cost money. Her dress was clean but faded, the color of old sky. She hummed under her breath, a gentle tune she used to sing to her younger brother when they were children, before hard years rolled in like a storm. Grace had known hunger so well that she could smell it on other people. She knew how coins felt when they hid in the corners of pockets. She knew what it meant to be wretched in a world that clapped only for shiny shoes. Yet she also knew how to make a home out of little things, how to fold napkins like flowers, how to fix a torn hem with thread pulled from the edge of a towel, how to warm a room with soft words and a pot of tea. The cooks loved her because she never took more than her share. The gardeners loved her because she always carried water for them when the sun burned hot. The guards loved her because she learned their children's names. William noticed, though he had not planned to. At first he watched the way she listened, really listened, to anyone who spoke to her. A courier with shaky hands, an old driver whose wife had fallen ill, the housekeeper worried about her son's school fees. Grace did not interrupt. She did not rush. She made space for people's hearts like a mother opens the door for a tired child. Then William saw something small and unforgettable. One rainy afternoon he walked past the side corridor and found Grace in the pantry counting tomatoes. A cat had wandered in from the garden, wet and thin. Grace took off her scarf, dried the cat and cut a tomato in half. She placed the pieces on a saucer and sat on the floor while the animal ate. She did not see William watching. She simply smiled at the cat and said softly, "You're safe here. You're safe here." The words followed him all day. William's marriage had become a ceremony of silence. His father's portrait hung in the study, eyes stern even in oil paint, as if reminding him that power is a house that must never be dirty. Vanessa understood that house well. She had the perfect smile for cameras and the perfect answer for charity dinners. But in private she was a winter that never broke. She liked beauty but only the kind that cost more than other people could afford. She liked people but only when they stood far enough away. When she said, "I love you," it sounded like a contract signed in a cold room. The night William's mother fell ill, none of the nurses could find her favorite shawl. The one she said held the smell of her late husband's cologne. The old woman shivered and asked for it again and again. The staff panicked. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "It's just a shawl," she said, tapping her phone. Grace disappeared for 15 minutes and returned with the shawl warm from the dryer. She had tied it with a ribbon she cut from her own dress. "I hope this helps," she whispered, placing it around the old woman's shoulders. William's mother sighed and smiled for the first time in weeks. "What is your name?" she asked. "Grace," she said. "Of course it is," the old woman murmured. From then, small moments piled up like stones building a path. William found himself walking that path before he realized it. He asked Grace for her ideas about the foundation school project. She suggested starting with clean water, because a child who drinks from a dirty bucket cannot concentrate on math. He took her suggestion to the board. The pilot project succeeded in 3 villages. He asked her how she learned to speak so gently to angry people. She told him about the market where she once sold oranges and how a smile could calm even a hungry buyer. He asked what books she read at night. She laughed and said, "Anything I can get. Even the back of soap boxes if they have big words." He brought her a book the next day. She read it in a week and wrote notes in the margins with a pencil she kept behind her ear. When she returned the book, she said, "I love this sentence," and repeated something about mercy being a door we must open for each other. He went back to his study and sat with that sentence a long time. He did not fall in love like a boy falling into a river. He fell as a man walking forward, one step then another, into a place where the air felt honest. Vanessa noticed the change the way a hawk notices the shadow of a mouse. She did not shout. She did not cry. She set her jaw and sharpened her smile. She watched Grace move through rooms like a blue thread connecting everything. She watched William soften like bread in warm hands. She called her lawyer. "I want all our agreements reviewed," she said. "Everything. If he thinks he can humiliate me, he will learn what winter feels like." The lawyer nodded, afraid to look at her for too long. In the weeks that followed, the house felt like a stage set after the actors leave, quiet but filled with echoes. William asked for a private meeting with Vanessa. He tried to be gentle and truthful at the same time, which is the hardest way to speak. "We have lost the thing that makes a home," he said. "What thing?" she asked. "Warmth," he said. "We kept the walls but we let the fire die." Vanessa smiled without her eyes. "You found a fire elsewhere." "I found kindness," he said. "It changed me." "You are a fool," she replied. "And I do not lose." The next day, the housekeeper told Grace in a whisper that some of the staff had been interviewed by men in suits. The day after that, a rumor slid through the kitchen that an audit was coming. On the 3rd day, the driver warned Grace not to take rides alone at night. Grace kept working, steady and quiet. She packed food for the guards who stood long shifts. She made a simple stew for William's mother when her stomach was weak. She stayed out of rooms where cameras watched. William made his decision. He filed for divorce not with fire but with firm lines and a clear signature. He prepared statements for the board and for the press. He called his lawyer and told him to plan for storms. He called the chief of security and told him to watch the gates. He called his heart to be brave. He also asked Grace one evening under the jacaranda tree in the courtyard, "Will you stand with me in the light? Not as a secret. Not as a shadow." Grace swallowed. "People will talk," she said. "They already do," he answered. "They will try to break me," she whispered. "I will not let them," he said, though he knew some storms cannot be stopped, only weathered. She looked up at the purple blossoms and then at him. "I will stand," she said, voice small but strong. "But I will not let your world turn me unkind." "That is the promise I hoped you would make," he said. They were not foolish. They expected anger. They did not expect the trap. The day of the gala arrived with gold decorations and white flowers and a red carpet that looked like a road to a bright future. The Carter Foundation was announcing a new scholarship fund for children who had lost parents in rural communities. William intended to tie the public charity to a personal truth, that love should not hide when it can help others stand taller. He would speak about kindness, about the courage to change, and then he would speak Grace's name. He rehearsed the words in his head, clear, respectful, steady. He even planned a line to honor Vanessa for the good years and the work they had done together, because kindness does not forget what once was. Vanessa arrived early. Her dress was perfect. Her smile was armor. She kissed donors on the cheek and posed for photos with the board. She spoke warmly about the scholarship, and every sentence sounded like she wrote it on cold glass. If anyone wondered why her husband had chosen a separate car, they hid the question under polite laughter. William took the stage. He thanked the guests, the staff, and the donors. He spoke about the first school he visited as a boy, a one-room hut with a chalkboard so old the chalk dust had turned its edges gray. He spoke about the girl he had seen there who solved a math problem in her head and then gave her lunch to a smaller child. "Her name was Hope," he said. "I think of her every time we plan a project." The audience leaned in. His voice warmed. He spoke about mercy being a door. He moved to the truth he could no longer keep inside. "I have made a personal decision, one that will disappoint some of you and relieve others. I am ending my marriage and I am choosing a future built on kindness, truth, and courage. I am in love with Grace." "Yes," shouts, flashbulbs. Grace, standing near the curtain, trembled but did not hide. William stepped down and took her hand. In that instant, hand in hand, they felt a quiet peace, as if the storm, however loud, could not drown the simplest truth: two people choosing gentleness. Then the hall doors opened and officers stepped in, led by a woman with a badge that caught the light. Vanessa's smile sharpened. The lead officer lifted a folder and spoke like a bell. "We have a report," she said, "that items of high value are missing from the Carter residence. We've traced the items and we need to question an employee, Grace." The room stirred like a nest of snakes. Whispering started. Phones lifted high. Some guests pressed forward, eager for scandal. Others pulled back, ashamed of how quickly curiosity can turn into a net. Grace's fingers went cold in William's hand. "What items?" William demanded, stepping in front of Grace. "Family jewelry," the officer replied, glancing at Vanessa. "A bracelet with a ruby clasp. Earrings with small diamonds. A watch that belonged to Mr. Carter's father." William's jaw tightened. "Those pieces were moved to a secure vault last month," he said. "I signed the order." The officer looked down at the papers. "We have a sworn statement from a witness who saw your maid in the private safe room yesterday afternoon." Grace shook her head, eyes wide. "I was not in the safe room," she whispered. "I was ironing sheets for the guest rooms." "Do you have proof?" the officer asked. Grace opened her mouth, then closed it. People in her world rarely kept receipts for clean sheets. The housekeeper was off that day, visiting her sister in the hospital. The camera by the linen closet had been down for maintenance since morning. Vanessa's smile did not move, but her eyes glittered like ice. William stepped closer to the officer. "You will not put your hands on her in this room," he said, voice low and calm, the way a river is calm before flooding its banks. "If you need to talk, we will talk. But you will not treat her like a thief." The officer studied him, then Grace, then the crowd hungry for drama. "Sir," she said softer, "we must follow the report." Vanessa took one step forward, finally letting her anger show. "You see," she said loudly to the donors and cameras, "this is the kind of woman he throws our life away for." Grace flinched but did not let go of William's hand. Suddenly the hall lights flickered and dropped, leaving the room in a dim, uneasy glow. Someone had pulled the fire alarm. The sprinklers did not go off, but a warning bell rang in the ceiling. People started to push toward the exits, muttering. In the confusion, a second group of officers appeared at the side door, and one moved straight toward Grace with a pair of handcuffs. William stepped between them. "Stop," he said. "Sir, please," the officer replied. "We need to take her in for questioning." "Then take me too," William said. "I am the one in charge of that house." The officer hesitated. The bell kept ringing. The red and blue lights outside splashed over the floor like waves. Vanessa lifted her phone and pointed it at Grace as if to catch her soul in a picture. And then, like a final stone thrown into still water, a new voice cut through the noise. From the back of the hall, an old man, one of the family elders, lifted his walking stick and shouted, "Enough! If you choose this girl, you choose war." His words echoed against the high ceiling. The crowd went silent. The officer raised the cuffs again. Grace's breath came fast and thin. William's face hardened into a look nobody had seen before. The officer took the last step and the metal cuffs clicked open, cold and bright under the chandelier light, reaching for Grace's wrists as the alarm screamed above them. "Where are you watching from tonight? Tell me in the comments, and if you're hooked already, tap like, subscribe and share." The cuffs gleamed inches away from Grace's trembling wrists when William stepped forward, his body like a shield. "Don't touch her," he said, his voice steady but dangerous. "If you lay one finger on her, you'll answer to me." The officer froze for a moment, caught between duty and the power standing in front of him. Behind them the donors murmured. Some whispered that William had lost his mind. Others whispered something sharper. What if she really did steal? Grace's heart thudded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She looked at William, then at the crowd, then at Vanessa. Vanessa's lips curved in a victorious smile, her eyes like a knife. The old man with the walking stick slammed it against the marble floor again. "You disgrace us, William," he barked. "You throw away your wife, your family's honor, for a wretched maid? You bring shame to the Carter name." His words were heavy, soaked with tradition and pride, and the room leaned toward him. Even the officers looked uncertain. Grace's knees weakened. She had no armor against such voices. She had no titles, no money, no power. She was just a maid. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her throat closed like a door in the wind. William looked at her and then at his family elder. "What brings shame," he said slowly, his voice cutting through the bell still ringing overhead, "is cruelty. What destroys honor is arrogance. I will not live a lie for the sake of your pride." He took Grace's hand again. "If you call her wretched, then I stand with the wretched. If you call her weak, then I will stand beside her strength. If you call her unworthy, then I will show you how wrong you are." The officer holding the cuffs shifted uneasily. Vanessa's smile faltered for the first time. She had expected William to flinch, to bend under the weight of family pressure. Instead he stood taller. "Sir," the officer said, "we still need to take her in for questioning. These are legal orders. If you resist, it will be worse." The crowd gasped. Grace's eyes widened. She whispered, "William, please don't." But William raised his voice. "Then take me too. Write it down. William Carter, billionaire, accused of theft alongside his maid. Let the whole world see your foolishness." The officer froze, staring at him. This was not the script. This was not how rich men acted when scandal knocked on their door. And then, just as tension stretched to its breaking point, the fire alarm stopped ringing. The hall went silent, every ear straining. Somewhere outside, a car engine revved hard, then screeched away. The lead officer touched her earpiece, listening to a voice only she could hear. Her eyes widened. She looked at William, then at Grace. "Mr. Carter, there's been a development." "What development?" William demanded. "Another report just came in," the officer said. "The missing items, they were spotted being pawned across town. By someone else. A man." The crowd rippled with shock. Vanessa's face paled, then hardened like stone. Grace's breath rushed out, trembling with relief. But before she could even smile, the old man with the walking stick pointed at her again. "This does not save you, girl," he snarled. "The stain remains. You think love will protect you? No. It will destroy him." His words fell like a curse. And though William held her hand tightly, Grace felt the weight of those words like chains around her shoulders. The gala broke into chaos. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing, guests murmuring their exit plans. William pulled Grace through the side door, shielding her from the frenzy. But as they reached the dark corridor, a voice whispered from the shadows. "You don't know what you've started, William. She will be your ruin." Vanessa stepped into the light, her emerald gown glowing like a serpent's skin. She leaned close to Grace, her perfume sharp as fire. "Enjoy your moment," she said coldly. "Because I will tear your name apart piece by piece. And when I'm done, he will wish he never met you." Her eyes burned with something deeper than anger. It was war. William pulled Grace away, but Grace's heart beat with dread. She had survived hunger, poverty, and loneliness. But could she survive the fury of a woman who had everything to lose? The corridor doors banged shut behind them, and outside the red-blue lights still flashed. William's grip on Grace's hand tightened. "Whatever storm is coming," he said, his voice fierce, "we will face it together." But just as he spoke, a second car screeched up to the curb. A dark figure stepped out, carrying a brown leather case. His face was hidden under a hat. The officer at the entrance stiffened, then quickly turned away as if afraid to be seen. The man's eyes locked on Grace. Slowly he smiled. And in that moment, she felt that her life, already turned upside down, was about to spin into a danger she could not imagine. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe and share. The man in the dark hat stepped closer, the brown leather case swinging at his side. His smile was sharp, the kind that made Grace's stomach knot. The flashing police lights painted his face red, then blue, then red again like a warning. William stepped in front of her immediately. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice heavy with authority. The man tipped his hat slightly but said nothing at first. Then he lifted the case with one hand and let it drop on the hood of a parked car. The latch snapped open, and when the lid fell back, the crowd outside gasped. Inside the case lay the missing jewelry, the ruby-clasped bracelet, the diamond earrings, the old gold watch that belonged to William's father. All gleamed under the streetlight. "I believe these belong to the Carter family," the man said smoothly, his voice carrying a foreign accent. The officers rushed forward. "Where did you get these?" one of them barked. The man shrugged. "From where they were left. Let's just say someone wanted the little maid here to take the blame. Lucky for her, I like fairness." He turned his eyes to Grace. "Very lucky." Grace's knees nearly gave way. I've never seen you before," she whispered. The man chuckled, low and unsettling. "Oh, I've seen you. More than you know." William bristled. "You expect us to believe this?" he said. That you just appeared with my family's heirlooms out of goodwill? The man's smile widened. Believe what you want. But the truth is plain, your maid is innocent. He leaned in closer to William, lowering his voice just enough. For now. The officers seized the case, muttering among themselves, clearly confused. The lead officer looked at William. We'll take this into evidence. It seems your employee has been cleared, for now. But sir, this investigation isn't over. Vanessa stepped out from the crowd at that very moment, her face pale but her fury carefully hidden behind a thin smile. How convenient, she said, her voice like glass. A stranger shows up with jewels in a case and suddenly we're meant to forget what we saw tonight? No, William. No one forgets a scandal. Her name will always be tied to this. Her words spread like poison among the bystanders, who began whispering and snapping photos. Grace clung to William's arm, her heart twisting. She wanted to disappear. The old man with the walking stick reappeared, shaking his head in disgust. This is madness, he spat. If you continue down this path, William, you will lose everything, your wealth, your seat on the board, your name. All for a maid. But William stood firm, his jaw set. I would rather lose everything than live without truth. The man in the hat chuckled again and began walking away. Before he disappeared into the shadows, he turned and called out, Remember, Mr. Carter, every choice has a price. And yours is only beginning to show. The air grew heavy after he vanished. Grace shivered. Who was he? Why had he helped? Or was he part of something darker, a game she didn't yet understand? The officers cleared the scene, promising to contact William soon. Guests left quickly, buzzing with gossip. The gala had collapsed into scandal, the scholarship announcement completely forgotten. William guided Grace into his waiting car. She sat stiffly, her hands clenched on her lap. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would someone do this to me? William reached for her hands. Because you are the easiest target. They know hurting you hurts me. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't belong in your world. Maybe Vanessa is right. Maybe I'll destroy everything. He cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. Grace, listen to me. You are not the destruction, you are the light. Don't let them twist that. She wanted to believe him, but doubt pressed hard on her chest. She had grown up learning that the world rarely spared people like her. She had fought to survive, not to be loved. And now love was dragging her into storms she had no map for. The car rolled to a stop at the mansion gates. But before the guards could open them, a black SUV sped past and stopped crosswise, blocking the entrance. 4 men in dark suits stepped out, faces hard. One of the guards ran up. Mr. Carter, sir, they say they're from the family council. They demand to see you immediately. William frowned. At this hour? Yes, sir. They say it cannot wait. Grace's pulse quickened. Something felt wrong, too sudden, too staged. The council never came unannounced. The men in suits approached the car. One leaned down to the window. His voice was calm, but his words were not. Mr. Carter, he said, the council has decided. Either you leave this girl tonight, or tomorrow morning the papers will print everything they have. Accounts, secrets, even things you thought were buried. Grace gasped, her eyes darting to William. William? But before she could say more, the man leaned even closer, his eyes sharp. Choose wisely. Your empire or your maid. The words hung heavy in the night air, pressing like a weight on William's chest. He looked at Grace, whose face was pale and frightened. Then he looked at the men, their suits dark and their eyes colder than stone. For the first time, William hesitated. Where are you watching from tonight? Tell me in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The night pressed down heavy as stone. William's silence was louder than thunder. Grace felt his hand tremble slightly where it rested on hers, and her heart sank. This man, the richest in the city, the one whose name opened doors and silenced rooms, was being cornered like a boy trapped in an alley. The council men waited, their dark suits glinting faintly under the gate lights. One of them tapped a folded newspaper against his palm as if to remind William what tomorrow could bring. Secrets. Headlines. Shame. Grace whispered, her voice barely audible, William, don't do this for me. I'll leave. I'll disappear. I've lived that life before, I can live it again. Her words cut him deeper than any threat. He turned sharply, his eyes blazing. No, Grace. Don't you dare say that. The man holding the newspaper leaned closer to the window. Then choose now, he pressed. Your empire, or her. For a moment, the guards at the gate shifted nervously, unsure whether to intervene. Even the driver's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. William took a slow breath, his eyes fixed on the men. "Tell the council," he said at last, his voice low but firm, "that I will not be ruled by fear." The man sneered. "So you choose the maid." "I choose truth," William answered. "And if my empire falls, then it falls on my terms, not yours." The man's smile slipped into a frown. He slapped the folded newspaper against the hood of the SUV and signaled to the others. "So be it. Tomorrow the city will know what kind of fool you are." The men climbed back into their vehicle and drove off, tires spitting gravel. The gate swung open at last and the Carter car rolled slowly into the mansion grounds. But the damage had already been done. William knew the storm would strike with the sunrise. Inside, Grace sat on the edge of the couch in the grand sitting room, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. She could barely look at him. "William, what have you done?" "They'll destroy you. They'll destroy us both." He sat opposite her, his face drawn but determined. "Grace, I've lived my whole life behind walls built on other people's expectations. My father's rules. My family's pride. My wife's cold perfection. For once, I am choosing my own heart." Her eyes filled with tears. "But what if it ruins you?" He leaned forward, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. "Then let ruin come. At least I will fall knowing I stood for something real." For a few hours the mansion was quiet. Grace tried to sleep but her dreams were filled with shadows. Men in suits, Vanessa's cold smile, the stranger with the leather case. She woke before dawn, her chest heavy with dread. By the time the sun rose, the headlines had exploded. "Billionaire abandons wife for maid," screamed one. "Grace or disgrace," mocked another. Photos of her trembling at the gala splashed across front pages. Vanessa's carefully worded statement painted herself as a wronged woman, dripping with dignity, while quietly stabbing at Grace's character. The staff whispered in the halls. The phone rang endlessly. Outside the gates, reporters gathered like vultures, cameras flashing at every shadow. Grace pressed her back against the wall, her heart pounding. "William, I can't bear this." He pulled her close, his arms strong around her. "You will not face it alone. They can print lies, but they cannot print the truth out of existence." But before she could answer, the old man with the walking stick arrived, flanked by two younger relatives. His voice thundered the moment he entered. "This ends now, William." William stood. "No, uncle. It begins now. A new life, one without lies." The old man slammed his stick against the floor. "You think love will protect you? Love does not stop boardrooms from voting you out. Love does not stop banks from freezing accounts. Love does not feed the wolves when they smell blood." Grace's stomach twisted. She knew the man spoke truth. Money, power, and family could crush a person like her in a heartbeat. But William's jaw hardened. If love does not stop the wolves, then perhaps it will teach us how to outlast them. The uncle turned to Grace, his eyes cold. "Girl, listen to me. Walk away now and maybe you can keep your life simple. Stay and you'll drag him to ruin. Do you want his downfall on your head?" Grace's lips parted, her body trembling. Part of her wanted to scream that she never asked for any of this. That all she ever wanted was a quiet life, a chance to survive with dignity. But another part, the part William had seen, wanted to stand even if her knees shook. Before she could answer, a guard rushed in, breathless. "Sir, you need to see this. Now." He shoved the remote toward William and the television flickered on. The news anchor's voice filled the room. "Shocking revelations tonight as documents surface linking William Carter's maid, Grace, to a man accused of fraud and smuggling. Authorities are investigating whether she may have been involved." A photo appeared on the screen, blurry but unmistakable. Grace, years younger, standing in a marketplace beside a man with the same leather case they had seen the night before. Grace gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "No, no, that's not what it looks like. I swear, William, I don't even know why." The uncle pointed his stick at the screen. "There. Proof. She is poison." William stared at the screen, his face torn between shock and fury. Grace clutched his arm, her voice breaking. "Please, you have to believe me." And though his hand tightened around hers, his eyes flickered with doubt for the very first time. "Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share." Grace's breath came in shallow gasps as the photo stayed frozen on the television screen. Her younger self, standing in the dust of a marketplace, her smile faint, her clothes faded, and beside her, the very man with the leather case who had delivered the Carter jewels only hours before. The old man with the walking stick jabbed it toward her, his voice echoing in the room. "What more proof do you need, William? This girl has been tied to criminals long before she entered this house. She is dragging your name into the dirt." Grace shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. That picture isn't what you think. I didn't even know who he was. He bought oranges from me, just once. That's all. I was just a girl in the market trying to survive." Her voice cracked. The weight of years of poverty, of struggling alone, poured into those words. But the image on the screen was merciless. The younger relatives beside the old man muttered in agreement. "She's lying. Look at her. It's always the pretty ones who hide the darkest secrets." Grace's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. "William, please." William stood frozen, his eyes locked on the screen. For the first time, Grace saw something in his face that broke her heart. Hesitation. Her world tilted. If he stopped believing in her, if even William abandoned her, then she would have nothing. Nothing but her own broken truth. She staggered forward and fell to her knees before him, her tears staining the marble floor. "You must believe me," she whispered hoarsely. "Yes, that's me in the picture. But I had no choice in those days. I was just trying to live. That man. I didn't even know his name. Please, William. You see me now. You know me. Don't let them rewrite my story with lies." The room went silent. The old man folded his arms. The television droned on, piling accusation after accusation. At last, William turned his eyes away from the screen and knelt beside her. He cupped her face in his hands. "Grace, look at me." Her eyes lifted, desperate. "I do believe you." Her sobs broke into his chest as relief and terror collided. But the old man roared. "You fool. You blind fool. Belief will not save your empire. By morning the world will see her as a thief and you as her puppet. Your board will cast you out. Your wealth will vanish. And when it does, do you think she will still stay? Or will she run like the rest of them?" William rose, still holding Grace's hand. His eyes blazed as he faced the elder. "Then let it vanish. If my empire can be destroyed by lies, it was never strong to begin with. But my heart," he looked down at Grace, trembling but still clinging to him, "my heart is stronger than your threats." The uncle's fury cracked the air. He struck his stick on the floor so hard that dust rose. "So you choose her over blood? Over family?" "I choose love," William said firmly. The uncle's face hardened, his voice sharp as a curse. "Then you are no longer my blood." He turned and stormed out, his relatives following. The slam of the door echoed through the mansion like a judgment. Grace trembled, her relief mixed with dread. "William, you've lost them. You've lost everything." He drew her into his arms. "No, Grace. I've lost nothing that mattered." But even as he held her, the phones rang again. The lawyers were calling. The board was calling. The investors were calling. The empire was shaking and every tremor pointed back to Grace. By nightfall, the mansion was surrounded. Reporters crowded at the gates, their cameras flashing. Headlines screamed louder by the hour. Some showed Grace's face with the word Maid scrawled in bold. Others painted William as a reckless man who had betrayed his wife for a woman beneath him. Inside, Grace sat by the window watching the sea of cameras. Her hands trembled around the cup of tea she hadn't touched. "They'll never let me be more than a scandal, William. No matter what I do, they'll only see a maid who doesn't belong." William sat beside her, his hand covering hers. "Then we will show them what belonging really means." Before Grace could answer, the head of security rushed in, his face pale. "Sir, there's trouble." "What trouble?" William asked sharply. The guard swallowed hard. "A mob has gathered outside the foundation office. They're chanting her name. Some are shouting for her arrest. Others are demanding she be cast out of your house." Grace's cup slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. She pressed her palms against her face, sobbing. "I can't do this, William. I can't live like this. Maybe I should go." William grabbed her wrists, pulling her hands away so she had to see his eyes. "Grace, if you leave, you give them exactly what they want. They want to break us. They want to make me crawl back to a loveless life and keep you in the shadows. I won't allow it." But his words were cut short by the sound of shattering glass. A stone had been hurled through the mansion window. It clattered across the marble floor, leaving behind a trail of shards. Grace screamed. William pulled her against him, shielding her as security ran in. One guard picked up the stone, his face grim. There was a note tied to it. He handed it to William. William untied the string and opened the paper. His jaw clenched as he read the scrawled words. "Send her away, or next time it won't be just glass." Grace's breath caught. She looked up at him, her face pale with terror. "William, what if they really mean it?" He folded the note, his eyes dark with fury. Then they've declared war. And I do not lose wars. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The shattered glass still crunched under the guard's boots as William stood in the middle of the sitting room, his fists clenched at his sides. Grace sat trembling on the couch, her hands pressed together as if in prayer. The stone with the note lay on the table between them, heavy with menace. Outside, the shouts of the mob carried faintly through the night air. Voices rose and fell, some chanting Grace's name like a curse, others screaming Williams for betraying his wife. Camera flashes popped against the mansion walls like sparks from a fire. Grace whispered, her voice trembling, "William, this is bigger than us now. They want me gone. If staying puts your life in danger." He cut her off sharply. "No, Grace. Don't you dare think leaving will fix this. You are not the problem. They are." The head of security cleared his throat. "Sir, if I may, the threat is serious. The note could be more than a warning. If it escalates, we may not be able to keep her safe here." William's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll move her somewhere safer. A place they can't touch her." Grace looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. "Where could that be?" "They'll find me anywhere. You know they will." For a long moment William said nothing. Then he turned to the guard. "Prepare the safe house." The guard nodded quickly and left the room. Grace clutched William's sleeve. "Safe house? What safe house?" He took her hand gently. "It's a place I built years ago, far from the city. No reporters, no board members, no Vanessa. Just quiet." Her lips trembled. "And what about you? You'll stay here and face all of this alone?" His eyes softened. "No, Grace. I'm coming with you." Before she could answer, the front doors burst open. Vanessa swept in, her emerald gown replaced by a sleek black suit, her hair tied back in a sharp bun. Her heels clicked against the marble like a drumbeat. Behind her trailed two lawyers and a woman with a camera. "So," she said coldly, her eyes locking on Grace. "Hiding behind him, are you? You think you can steal my husband and my life without consequences?" Grace rose slowly, her voice shaking but firm. "I didn't steal him. You lost him when you forgot what love means." The words struck like a whip, and for the first time Vanessa's mask cracked. Her eyes blazed. "You dare speak to me about love? You, who polished my floors, who scrubbed my dishes, you think you belong at his side?" William stepped forward, his body shielding Grace. "Enough, Vanessa. This isn't about her. This is about us and the truth." But Vanessa only smiled, cold and sharp. She nodded to the woman with the camera. "Record everything," she ordered. "The world deserves to see the little maid pretending to be a queen." The camera light flicked on, and Grace froze like a deer in headlights. William snapped, his voice thundering. "Turn that off, or I'll have you removed from this property." Vanessa smirked. "You think you still have that power? By tomorrow you won't even have the board on your side. They've already scheduled a vote, William. And when they strip you of your position, you'll have nothing left but her. Let's see how long she stays when the money's gone." Grace's heart cracked at the venom in her words. But she forced herself to stand taller. "I stayed long before there was money, Vanessa. I know what it's like to have nothing. Can you say the same?" For once, Vanessa had no reply. Her face hardened and she spun on her heel. "Enjoy your fairy tale while it lasts," she hissed. "Because soon, it will turn into a nightmare." The camera woman followed, and the heavy doors slammed behind them, leaving the echo of Vanessa's threat in the air. Grace collapsed back onto the couch, her body trembling. William knelt beside her, his hand warm on hers. "Don't let her words poison you. She thrives on fear. But we are stronger than her hatred." Grace leaned her head against his shoulder, whispering, "I don't feel strong, William. I feel like I'm drowning." He wrapped his arms around her. "Then let me be your anchor. Let me carry you until you can stand again." For a brief moment, the world felt still, just the two of them against the storm. But the stillness broke when the guard returned, his face pale. "Sir, we have a problem." William rose quickly. "What is it?" The guard swallowed hard. "The safe house, it's been compromised. Someone leaked the location. Reporters are already there waiting." Grace's blood turned to ice. "So there's nowhere safe?" The guard hesitated, then added, "There might be one place left. But sir, it's risky." William's eyes narrowed. "Where?" The guard looked at Grace, then back at William. "Her old village. Nobody would think to look there." "But," he hesitated. "If the council finds out, they might use it against you. They'll dig into her past, her family, everything she's tried to leave behind." Grace's breath caught in her throat. Memories of hunger, shame, and whispered gossip from that village rushed back like ghosts. She shook her head violently. No, William. Not there. Not ever. But William took her hand firmly. Grace, if that's the only place where they won't expect us, then that's exactly where we'll go. Grace's eyes filled with dread. You don't understand. If we go back, the truth I've been running from will find us. And before William could ask what she meant, she whispered, her voice breaking, the man with the leather case? He's from that village. The revelation struck the room like a bolt of lightning. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The air in the room turned heavy after Grace's confession. William froze, his grip tightening on her hand. What did you say? Grace's eyes filled with tears. Her lips trembled, but she forced the words out. The man with the leather case, he came from my village. I knew his face years ago before I ever came to this city. I prayed I would never see him again. William's voice dropped low. Grace, what did he do? She looked away, her gaze fixed on the shattered glass on the floor. He was feared. Everyone called him Uncle Jonas, though he was no uncle to us. He controlled the market, the debts, the small lives of poor families. If you owed him a coin, he took your bread. If you couldn't pay, he took your land. Some said he took worse. Her voice cracked. When I was 16, he came to our hut and demanded my father's goat. My father refused, so Jonas cursed us. The next week, my father fell ill and never rose again. My mother worked herself to death trying to keep us alive. And me? I sold oranges in that same market, hoping Jonas would never notice me again. She buried her face in her hands. That's why I hated that photograph. Because I remember the day it was taken. He bought fruit from me and he smiled like a man who owned the whole world. I felt trapped, like a bird caught in his cage. I never thought anyone would dig it up years later to ruin me. William's jaw tightened. So Vanessa, or someone on the council, must have found Jonas and paid him to destroy you. Grace shivered. He doesn't need money. He loves power. And he knows hurting me hurts you. The guard shifted uncomfortably. Sir, if Jonas is involved, it's worse than we thought. He has connections, not just in the village but in the city. Police, businessmen, even some politicians. William's eyes darkened. Then it's time someone stood against him. Grace grabbed his arm, fear blazing in her eyes. No. You don't understand. Jonas doesn't fight fair. He doesn't attack openly, he poisons, he blackmails, he whispers lies until people believe them. That's how he controls everything. William cupped her face gently. Grace, listen to me. I won't let him destroy you. Whatever secret he holds, whatever lies he spreads, we will face it together. You are not alone anymore. Her tears spilled freely. But if you fight him, William, he'll come for everything, your wealth, your name, your family. He'll drag you down into the mud where I've been all my life. His voice softened but stayed firm. Then let him try. I'd rather lose gold than lose the truth. Before Grace could respond, the mansion lights flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the house. Gasps echoed down the hall from the staff. The backup generator failed to start. The head of security barked orders, flashlights flicking on. Sir, the power's been cut from outside. This is no accident. Grace's heart pounded. It's him. Jonas. He's come for us. The guards rushed to secure the doors. William pulled Grace close. Stay by me. But even as he spoke, a sound rose from beyond the gates. It was not the mob of reporters this time. It was something darker, heavier, a low chant, a murmur of many voices moving as one. The guard at the window stiffened. Sir, there are men gathering outside. Not reporters. Not protesters. Men with trucks, holding torches. Grace's body shook. It's Jonas's people. He's brought the village to you. The chant grew louder, filling the night. The fire from the torches glowed against the walls, painting shadows across the windows. William stood tall in the darkness, his silhouette sharp against the faint light. So he wants war. Then war he will have. Grace clung to his arm, her whisper breaking. William, please don't let them take me. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, his voice steady even as danger pressed in. They'll have to go through me first. The front gate rattled violently, the sound of metal straining against force. The guards raised their weapons, shouting warnings. Grace pressed her forehead against William's chest, her tears hot against his shirt. And then with a roar, the gates gave way. The men surged forward, their torches blazing, their chants shaking the night. At their head, standing tall and grinning like a wolf, was Jonas. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The iron gates crashed open with a screech, and the mob of men stormed onto the mansion grounds, their torches casting wild shadows against the walls. Their chants rolled like thunder. Grace must fall. Grace must fall. At the head of the crowd stood Jonas, the man with the leather case. His broad shoulders carried the arrogance of a king without a crown. He raised his torch high, his grin slicing through the dark like a blade. "William Carter," he shouted, "come out and face me. Or must I drag your little maid out myself?" The guards scrambled into position, guns raised, their flashlights cutting thin beams through the night. The head of security barked orders, but the mob did not retreat. They were too many, too fueled by rage, and too emboldened by the man who led them. Grace clutched William's sleeve, her whole body trembling. "William, please, don't go out there. He'll twist everything. That's what he does. He wins with fear." William pulled her behind him protectively. His jaw was set, his eyes unyielding. "I've had enough of hiding. If fear is his weapon, then truth will be mine." Before Grace could protest, William strode out the front doors and onto the steps of the mansion. The flames from the torches lit his figure, casting him like a statue of defiance. The mob's chants faltered for a moment, caught off guard by his boldness. Jonas lowered his torch slightly, smirking. "There he is. The fool who threw away his wife, his wealth, his family, all for a servant girl. Tell me, Carter, how does it feel to be a laughingstock?" William's voice rang out, strong and steady. "Better than it must feel to be a coward who hides behind lies and mobs." The crowd murmured uneasily. Some men shifted on their feet. Jonas's grin faltered for a moment, then sharpened again. "You think they'll believe you?" he sneered, holding up a folded stack of papers. "I have evidence, documents, photographs, testimonies. Proof that your precious Grace is nothing more than a fraud who grew up feeding on scraps and stealing from the poor. Shall I show them?" Gasps rippled through the mob. Grace's heart sank. Her knees weakened until she thought she might collapse. She whispered through tears, "He's lying. William, he's lying." William turned slightly, his eyes locking on her. "I know." Then louder to Jonas, "Wave your papers all you want. But I know who she is. I know the kindness she carries, the truth she lives, the love she gives freely. And no forged document will change that." The mob roared, half in anger, half in confusion. Jonas sneered. "So you'll ruin yourself for her? You'll watch your empire crumble just to defend a wretched girl?" "Yes," William said simply. "Because love is worth more than gold. And Grace is worth more than every lie you can tell." For the first time Jonas's smirk wavered. He had expected fear, desperation, retreat. Not this unwavering defiance. His torch dipped lower. His eyes flickered with something dangerous. Then he snapped his fingers. From the shadows behind him, two men dragged forward a struggling figure. A gasp tore from Grace's throat. It was the housekeeper, her friend, the woman who had always shielded her in the kitchen. Her hands were bound, her mouth gagged. Jonas laughed, the sound chilling. "If words don't break you, William, perhaps action will. Choose the maid or the servant. One will walk free, the other will suffer. What is your empire of love worth now?" The mob roared louder, feeding on the tension. Grace staggered forward, tears spilling. "No. Don't hurt her. Please, Jonas, she has nothing to do with this." Jonas's grin widened. "Then give yourself up, Grace. Come quietly and I'll release her. Refuse, and her blood will stain this mansion." The torches burned hotter, the crowd shouting, the guards tightening their hold on their weapons. William's chest heaved, torn between rage and the need to protect both women. Grace's voice cracked through the chaos. "William, don't fight him. He'll kill her because of me." But William's voice thundered above the mob. "If you harm one hair on her head, Jonas, you'll regret the day you ever set foot on my land." Jonas's laugh boomed, echoing off the mansion walls. He tightened his grip on the housekeeper's arm, his torch dangerously close to her face. "Then show me, Carter," he taunted, eyes blazing. "Show me how far you're willing to go for love." And as he raised his hand to signal his men, the mob erupted into a frenzied roar. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The mob's roar rolled like thunder, drowning the night. Flames from the torches painted the mansion walls orange, and the bound housekeeper whimpered through her gag, her wide eyes glistening with terror. Grace dropped to her knees on the mansion steps, her hands outstretched. "Please, Jonas. Don't hurt her, she's innocent. Take me instead." The crowd howled at her words, some jeering, others nodding with approval. Jonas's grin widened, his teeth gleaming in the firelight. Ah, so the maid finally speaks truth. You admit your life is worth less than hers. William stepped forward sharply, his voice cutting like steel. Enough of this game, Jonas. If it's me you want, then face me directly. Leave these women out of it. Jonas tilted his head, mocking. You think you're a match for me? No, Carter. I've already beaten you. The papers mock you. The board whispers against you. Your family disowns you. All that remains is for me to break you in front of them. He yanked the housekeeper closer, pressing the torch near her cheek. The poor woman cried out through her gag. Grace screamed, trying to rush forward, but William caught her arm. Stay behind me, he whispered fiercely. I'll end this. With that, William raised his voice to the mob. Listen to me. You are being used. This man, Jonas, he doesn't care for you, your families, or your futures. He only cares about power. Do you think he'll share it with you? No. He'll bleed you dry the way he bled my Grace's village dry. Some of the mob hesitated. Murmurs rippled through them. A few lowered their torches. Jonas's face darkened. Lies, he barked. He protects her because she's bewitched him. Look at her. A maid, dressed in borrowed clothes, standing where she doesn't belong. She will bring ruin to you all. Grace stood, her body shaking but her voice clear. No. I belong because I have given kindness when others gave cruelty. I have served with honesty when others lived on lies. You call me wretched, but I am not ashamed of who I am. And if love ruins William, then let it ruin me too, because I will not let fear decide my life anymore. Her voice carried over the mob. For the first time, silence rippled through them, broken only by the crackle of torches. Jonas's grin faltered. He shoved the torch closer to the housekeeper. Enough of this. Words will not save her. Make your choice, Carter, her or the maid. William's fury boiled over. He stepped forward, his fists clenched. Neither. You won't touch either of them. Before Jonas could react, the head of security barked an order. A sudden flood of spotlights blazed on, blinding the mob. From the shadows around the mansion, hidden guards stepped forward with rifles raised. Their red laser dots painted across the men holding torches. Drop your weapons, the guards thundered. Now. Chaos erupted. Some of the mob panicked, dropping their torches and scattering. Others stood frozen, fear written on their faces. Jonas snarled, yanking the housekeeper tighter against him, using her as a shield. Cowards, he spat at the men retreating. Then his eyes darted to William, burning with rage. This isn't over. If I can't take her tonight, I'll destroy her another way. He shoved the housekeeper hard toward William and melted into the mob, disappearing into the dark as the guards surged forward to restore order. The housekeeper collapsed in William's arms, sobbing with relief. Grace rushed to her, pulling the gag away and cradling her like a sister. You're safe now, she whispered. You're safe. But William's eyes were fixed on the gates, his jaw clenched. No, she isn't. Not until Jonas is finished. Grace looked up at him, her face pale. You don't understand, William. Jonas never stops. He'll keep coming until he's taken everything from us. William turned to her, his voice low but firm. Then I'll do what no one has ever dared. I'll end Jonas's reign for good. Grace's breath caught. How? William's eyes darkened with resolve. By taking this fight back to where it began, your village. If that's where his power lives, that's where I'll break it. Grace's heart pounded. She had sworn never to return to that place, never to face the ghosts of her past. But now the past was marching straight toward her. She clung to William's hand, her whisper trembling. Then if we go back, we go together. But you must be ready, William. Because the truth about Jonas, and about me, is worse than you think. The guards dragged the remaining mob members away, the torches dying out one by one. But Grace knew the fire Jonas had lit would not go out so easily. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share. The night after Jonas's attack, the Carter mansion sat in uneasy silence. Shattered glass still glittered on the marble floors, and the smell of smoke lingered in the air. Grace stood at the window, staring out into the dark, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She knew there would be no peace until the root of the storm was torn out. William entered quietly, his hand resting on her shoulder. It's decided, he said firmly. We leave for your village at dawn. Jonas cannot be beaten from here. We'll end this where it started. Grace's heart clenched. I swore I'd never set foot there again, William. That village holds nothing but pain. He turned her to face him, his eyes steady. Then we'll turn your pain into power. No more running, Grace. Together we'll face him. At dawn, 2 black SUVs rolled out of the city, carrying William, Grace, the loyal guards, and the still-shaken housekeeper who refused to leave Grace's side. The journey was long, the roads narrowing from paved highways to dusty tracks. Grace's hands twisted in her lap as memories flooded back, her father's laughter, her mother's weary smile, and the shadow of Jonas always looming over them. When they reached the village, children stopped their games to stare. Old women whispered, pointing at Grace. Men gathered near the market, their faces wary. Word had already spread. The rich man and the maid had returned. At the village square, Jonas was waiting. He stood tall, his leather case resting at his feet, his smile smug. Around him were villagers, some loyal to him out of fear, others curious to see what would unfold. Well, Jonas drawled. The runaway maid returns, carrying a rich fool on her arm. Tell me, Grace, do you come to bow before me at last? Grace's knees trembled, but William's hand steadied her. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. I come to speak the truth, Jonas. The truth you've buried under fear for years. The crowd stirred. Jonas laughed harshly. Truth? What truth could a maid hold? Grace lifted her chin. That you killed my father with your greed. That you broke my mother with your debts. That you've stolen from these people for decades while calling it business. And that the day you cursed my family you thought you cursed me. But you didn't. You made me strong. The villagers murmured, their eyes darting between Jonas and Grace. For the first time, whispers of doubt cracked through their fear. Jonas's smile faded. Careful, girl. Words can cost lives. William stepped forward, his voice booming. Not anymore. Your lies end today. We've brought proof. He signaled to his guard, who pulled documents from a folder, records Jonas had hoped to keep hidden. Loan agreements forged with false signatures. Land deeds stolen from widows. Even receipts tying him to smuggling through the city markets. Gasps erupted from the villagers. Faces hardened with anger. Jonas's composure cracked. He lunged for the documents, but William blocked him, standing tall. Your reign of fear is over. Grace's voice rang out. People of this village, you don't have to bow to him anymore. Stand. Stand for yourselves. Stand for the truth. The crowd erupted, not in fear this time, but in fury. Men and women surged forward, shouting at Jonas, tearing his lies apart. The mob that had once served him now turned against him. Torches were snatched from his followers and hurled to the ground. Jonas's eyes darted wildly. He grabbed his leather case and bolted, but before he could escape, strong hands caught him. Villagers wrestled him down, their voices roaring with long-buried rage. The old chief of the village stepped forward, his cane tapping the ground. His eyes, clouded but wise, turned to Jonas. For years you made us slaves in our own homes. No more. You will face justice. The villagers dragged Jonas away, his curses lost in the noise. Grace stood trembling in the center of the square, tears streaming down her cheeks. William wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. It's over, he whispered. But Grace shook her head, her voice breaking. No, William. It's not just over, it's a beginning. For the first time I'm free. The villagers surrounded them, not with scorn but with newfound respect. They saw Grace not as the wretched maid, but as the brave woman who had dared to confront the monster who ruled them. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, William stood with Grace before the gathered crowd. His voice carried across the square. I came here to protect the woman I love. But I see now, she doesn't need my protection. She is the strongest soul I've ever known. And I am proud to call her not my maid, but my partner, my equal, my future. The crowd erupted in applause, some shouting blessings, others singing praises. Grace wept openly, but this time they were tears of joy. William took her hand, raising it high. Let this day be remembered, not as the day a rich man chose a maid, but the day truth defeated fear. And the day love proved stronger than lies. The cheers rose like thunder, filling the village. Grace leaned into him, whispering softly, You gave me a place to stand, William. And I'll never let go. Under the glow of the setting sun, surrounded by the people who once pitied her, Grace was no longer wretched. She was a symbol of courage, of truth, of love that had survived every storm. And as the torches burned not with rage but with celebration, William and Grace knew they had faced the darkest night, and dawn had finally come. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to like, share and subscribe if this story touched your heart. Red Heart.